Legal Aptitude and Logical Reasoning MCQ Part 2 Question number 101 இருந்து 200 வரைக்கும். Which discrimination is not prohibited under Article 15 of the Constitution of India? Status. Which of the following house is called Rajya Sabha? Council of States. State Trading Corporation of India Limited vs CTO AR 1963 SC 1811. The Supreme Court held that the State Trading Corporation, though a legal person, was not a dash and can act only through dash persons. Citizen, natural. Which of the given is not the principal points of distinction between a company and a partnership firm? A partner can transfer his shares and make the transferee a member of the firm without the consent of the other partners, whereas a company's share cannot ordinarily be transferred. Which of the given is not a distinction between company and Hindu joint family? No registration is compulsory for carrying on business for gain by a company even if the number of members exceeds 20. Registration of a Hindu undivided family is compulsory. Which of the given is a disadvantage of corporate form of enterprise? Greater social responsibility. Which of the given is not a disadvantage of corporate form of enterprise? Separate property. The Companies Act 2013 is not applicable to unincorporated companies. Which one of the given is not a type of company under the Companies Act 2013? Big company. Which section of the Companies Act 2013 provides the provisions for companies with charitable purpose? Section 8. Dash in relation to another company means a company in which that other company has a significant influence but which is not a subsidiary company of the company having such influence and includes a joint venture company, associate company. Inactive company means a company which has not been carrying on any business or operation or has not made any significant accounting transaction during the last 2 financial years. The minimum number of members for public companies is dash under the Companies Act 2013, 7. The minimum number of members for private companies is dash under the Companies Act 2013. None of this. Which of the given company is not required to annex with its board report a secretarial audit report? Public company with a paid up capital of rupees 25 crore. Which of the given is not a type of share capital in companies governed by the Companies Act 2013? Asset capital. Section 2, subsection 10 of the Companies Act 2013 defines that board of directors or board in relation to a company means the dash of the company, collective body of the directors. Section 149, subsection 1 of the Companies Act 2013 requires that every company shall have a minimum number of dash directors in the case of a public company. 3. Section 149, subsection 1 of the Companies Act 2013 requires that every company shall have a minimum number of dash directors in the case of a private company. 2. A company may dash remove a director not being a director appointed by the National Company Law Tribunal by ordinary resolution. What is net worth requirement for constitution of a corporate social responsibility committee of the board of directors? Rupees 500 crore. What is turnover requirement for constitution of a corporate social responsibility committee of the board of directors? Rupees 1000 crore. What is net profit requirement for constitution of a corporate social responsibility committee of the board of directors? Rupees 5 crore. Questions based on legal principle. Legal principle பார்த்தோம்னா all illegal agreements are void, but all void agreements are not necessarily illegal. Factual situation எடுத்துட்டோம்னா A had borrowed rupees 1000 from B to buy a pistol to shot C, which he did. He, however, failed to repay B and B decides to recover this money from A by filing a suit. The contract between A and B is illegal. Legal principle: a stranger to a contract cannot sue for want of privity of contract. Factual situation: A, who is indebted to B, sells his property to C, and C, the purchaser of the property, promises to pay off the debt to B. C fails to pay B. B has no right to sue C as there is a privity of contract between B and C. Legal principle: every agreement of which the object or consideration is unlawful is void. Factual situation: Mr. Thomas promises Mr. Johnson to drop a prosecution which he has instituted against Mr. Johnson for robbery, and Mr. Johnson promises to restore the value of the things taken. The agreement is void as its object is unlawful. Legal principle: where both the parties to an agreement are under a mistake as to a matter of fact essential to the agreement is void. Factual situation: Mr. Rupesh agrees to buy from Mr. Jalaj a certain car. It turns out that the car was scrapped at the time of bargain, though neither party was aware of the fact. The agreement is void. Legal principle: when consent to an agreement is caused by coercion, fraud or misrepresentation, the agreement is a contract voidable at the option of the party whose consent was so caused. Factual situation: Mr. Arun, intending to deceive Mr. Prakash, falsely represented that 500 tons of fertilizer are made annually at his factory, and thereby induced Mr. Prakash to buy the factory. The contract is voidable at the option of Mr. Prakash. Legal principle: a contract is said to be induced by undue influence where the relations subsisting between the parties are such that one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will of the other and uses that position to obtain an unfair advantage over the other. Factual situation: Mrs. Ashwini, having advanced money to his son Bhuvan during his minority, upon Bhuvan's coming of age of majority, obtains by misuse of parental influence a bond from Bhuvan for a greater amount than the sum due in respect of the advance. Ashwini employed undue influence. Legal principle: a person who is usually of sound mind but occasionally of unsound mind may not make a contract when he is of unsound mind. Factual situation: one of the purposes of the business party was to strike business deals and Mr. Animesh was well aware of it. Still, Mr. Animesh drank so much at the party that he could not understand the terms of a contract or form a rational judgment as to its effect on his interest. He still went ahead and entered into a few contracts at the party. One of such agreements had very oppressive terms and conditions of Mr. Animesh, and therefore he challenges the validity of the contract. He will succeed because he was temporarily of unsound mind because of his drunk state. Legal principle: a person who is usually of unsound mind but occasionally of sound mind may make a contract when he is of sound mind. Factual situation: Mr. Jamal is a patient in a lunatic asylum who experiences intervals of sound mind. Jamal entered into a contract during such interval of sound mind. On having suffered losses, he challenged the validity of the contract on the ground that he not only was mentally unsound but also lived in lunatic asylum. The contract is valid. Legal principle: an agreement enforceable by law is a contract. Factual situation: Mr. A and Mr. B, father of a minor boy P and minor girl Q, respectively enter into an agreement that they would marry their children P and Q to each other. Mr. B later refused to honor this agreement. Aggrieved by this, Mr. A decided to sue Mr. B and Miss Q for breach. Mr. A will fail because the agreement between them is not a contract. Legal principle: there should be a council of ministers with the Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise the President, who shall, in the exercise of his functions, act in accordance with such advice. Factual situation: the Lok Sabha general elections in 1996 did not give any party a clear majority, and various political parties, in their individual capacity and in association with other parties, staked claim with the President to form government. The President had to invite one such party or a group to form the government. He was free to exercise his discretion in such a situation. Legal principle: the ambit of this ordinance making power of the President is coextensive with the legislative powers of Parliament. Factual situation: during a time when the Lok Sabha was not in session, the President of India promulgated an ordinance on a matter which was not very urgent. A non-governmental organization decided to challenge the ordinance as ultra vires the Constitution. His challenge will fail because the use of the power to promulgate ordinance is left to the discretion of the President. Legal principle: directive principles of state policy are non-justiciable in nature. Mr. Sumit works for the protection of cows. He has come to know that in some states, slaughtering of cows is permissible under law. He also knows that one of the directive principles of state policy calls upon the state to prohibit cow slaughter. Based on this, Mr. Sumit approaches the Supreme Court of India for getting direction to the states to enact anti-cow slaughtering law. His petition will fail because DPSP cannot be enforced by the courts. Legal principle: Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution, including the fundamental rights, but the Parliament cannot alter the basic structure of framework of the Constitution. Factual situation: the Government of India passed a Constitutional Amendment Act which has the effect of curbing the independence of the judiciary. The act has been challenged in the Supreme Court of India by a group of NGOs and public-spirited individuals as being violative of the Constitution. The challenge will succeed because any amendment that compromises the independence of the judiciary is unconstitutional. Legal principle: consent of the plaintiff is an exception to the rule of strict liability. Factual situation: Mr. Jagdish was subjected to a risk owing to a defect in the machinery at the factory at which he was employed. He complained of this to the person who had the general management of the business, but was told nevertheless to go on with his work. He did so and sustained the injury for which he brought his action against the factory. The suit will succeed because Mr. Jagadish had highlighted the risk to the factory management and his refusal to work might have led to his termination. What is meant by the term actionable per se? Actionable without proof of damage. Article 16(2) of the Constitution of India prohibits discrimination against a citizen on certain grounds. Which of the following is not covered under the said grounds? Gender. Which of the following is not included under Parliament as per the Constitution of India? Legislative Assembly. Which section of the Indian Contract Act 1872 lays down certain exceptions which make a promise without consideration valid and binding? Section 25. The composition of which committee should be disclosed in the board's report under section 134(3) of the Companies Act 2013? CSR committee. Which of the following is not a disadvantage of corporate form of enterprise? Limited liability. Which article of the Constitution of India discusses the concept of right to equality? Article 14. Which of the following is called mini constitution? 42nd Constitutional Amendment. In which year Article 370 of Indian Constitution abrogated? 2019. Threatening to commit certain acts forbidden by Indian Penal Code is associated with which one of the following? Coercion. Which one of the given crime cannot be completed before actual touch to a person? Battery. The vision of socio-economic justice change through the Constitution is reflected in its preamble. Which of the following is not a fundamental right? Right to marriage. The word socialist is added by 42nd Amendment. Motto of ICSI is speak the truth, abide by the law. Who among the following has been given rights to legislate on residuary subjects? Central government. Which article in the Constitution provides guidelines for amending the preamble? Article 368. In a standardized contract, the individual has no choice but to accept and sign on the dotted line. R entered into a contract with L to marry her on a fixed date. However, before the marriage date, R went mad. With reference to the Indian Contract Act, which is the valid response? The contract becomes void. Identify the type of consideration which the shopkeeper is required to execute in the below situation. A pays ₹100 to a shopkeeper for goods which are promised to be supplied the next day. Future. Which of the following is extrajudicial remedy? Self-defense. Article 17 of the Constitution of India says that dash is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden. Untouchability. The executive power of the state is vested in the governor. Which amendment inserted Article 15(5) in the Constitution of India? 93rd Amendment. Article 18 of the Constitution of India is more a dash rather than a fundamental right. Prohibition. How many rights are guaranteed by Article 19(1) of the Constitution of India to its citizens? 6. There shall be a council of ministers with the dash at the head. Prime Minister. Cross offer does not constitute a contract because there is no acceptance. Which of the following agreements are not contracts? Agreements relating to social matters, domestic arrangements between husband and wife, both A and B. In a book depot, a catalogue of book enlisting the price of each book and specifying the place where the particular book is available is an invitation to visit the bookshop. An offer may be revoked by the offerer at any time before. Acceptance. A stranger to a contract cannot sue under dash for want of privity of contract. English law and Indian law. Under the Indian Contract Act 1872, the consideration may be past, present, future, all of this. Section 23 of the Indian Contract Act 1872 provides that the consideration or object of an agreement is lawful unless it is forbidden by law, is fraudulent, the court regards it as immoral or opposed to public policy. All of the above. Electronic contracts are not paper-based but rather in electronic form are born out of the need for speed, convenience, efficiency. All of the above. Who defines torts as civil wrong for which the remedy is a common law action for unliquidated damages and which is not exclusively the breach of a contract or the breach of a trust or other merely equitable obligation. Salmond. Which legal maxim means that the act itself creates no guilt in the absence of a guilty mind. Actus non facit trium nisi mensit tria. M is minor, B the borrower approaches M for a loan on the basis of a mortgage of the house owned by B. Hence, M advances the money and B executed a mortgage in favor of M, a minor. In these circumstances, the mortgage is enforceable by M even though he is minor. Which article to the Constitution provided the fundamental right to property, which has been removed by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978, Article 31. With a few exceptions, all the fundamental rights are available against state. According to Article 15 of the Constitution of India, the state cannot make special provision for which of the given? Elders. How many fundamental duties have been provided under Article 51A to the Constitution? 11. Lok Sabha is also called as House of People. Which of the given is not an essential element of a valid contract? Sufficient consideration. A contract to trade with an alien enemy is an agreement opposed to public policy. Section 6 of the Indian Contract Act 1872 deals with various modes of lapse of an offer. When an offer may be revoked by the offerer any time before acceptance. An agreement without consideration is valid. It is expressed in writing, registered, is made out of natural love, all of this. Dash contract is one which a party can put to an end he can exercise his option if his consent was not free. Voidable. Can an unsound mind make a contract when he is of sound mind? Yes, they can enter into contract if they are of sound mind when contract was entered. Which section 2M of the Limitation Act 1963 defines the words torts? Damages under law of tort are available in case of injuria sine damnum. Which of the given is not a kind of tortious liability? Criminal. Which court has discussed the applicability of the rule of Rylance vs. Fletcher in the case of MC Mehta vs. Union of India and others? Supreme Court. Which rule of the company's appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel rules 2014 provides that every private company which has a paid up share capital of rupees 10 crore or more shall have a whole-time company secretary? Rule 8A. Which act of the legislature provides the duties of a company secretary? Companies Act 2013. An incorporated company never comes to an end except when it is wound up as per law. The capital of a company can be divided into parts. What are these parts called? Shares. In which type of organization there is a separation of control from ownership? Companies. What is the maximum number of members in case of private limited company? 200. Which of the given is not a type of company under Companies Act 2013? Managerial company. What does the legal maxim Nociter associes mean? A word is known by its associated, one is known by his companions. What does the legal maxim pari materia mean? Relating to same person or thing.